Hello friends, it's Chops and welcome to this week's Chops vlog. We are almost done with Pandaria cooking. And I know. Look, I start every Chops vlog for like the past 3 months saying we're almost done with Pandaria cooking. But this time I mean it. I have finally gotten all the veggies and stuff I need. I've knocked out all of the ways of cooking except for this one. And I am on my way to Half Hill to buy the last of the reagents I need because I finally farmed up all the spirits of harmony I needed. And we're going to knock this out on camera together. But yeah, so we're going to do that while I talk about what I wanted to talk about this week. And you guys are never going to have to listen to me ever say anything about Panda cooking ever again. Very exciting. Big thing this week is it is Darkmoon Faire week. If you are relatively new to free-to-plays, you're really going to want to jump in on the Darkmoon Faire. There is a ton of stuff to do. There's the obvious stuff, like a bunch of achievements to do, like some really quality achievement hunting. And most of those achievements are fairly easy to get. So it'll get you a real good jump start on maximizing your achievement points. Another thing is the real good collectibles stuff. There's lots of pets, toys, and mounts for you to get, so you can get started on your collectibles. There are also sort of the practical things that you'll want to pick up. And one of those that you can get just right off the bat is the Darkmoon Faire cannon. I'm not going to try to tell you how to do that. There are a ton of guides out there. Hey, look, see, we're almost done. It's right there. There are a ton of guides out there. They're all better than I would make. But get yourself a guide to get the Darkmoon Faire cannon, because with the cannon and your glider cloak, you can get just about, hey, there we go. Yay, that feels great. Ooh, that feels good. You can get just about anywhere you need with the Darkmoon Faire cannon and the glider cloak. So definitely going to want to knock that out. And then it's also a great way to start thinking about like long-term projects for free-to-plays. Like it's one of the best places to sort of learn about getting that started, right? Because there are projects and there are goals that are going to take you a while over the course of several Darkmoon Fairs to get done. Like, for instance, I was trying to think like the Darkmoon Skate, the swimming mount. Very useful to have as a free-to-play, but it's going to take you a couple of Darkmoon Fairs to get, right? And you have to save up those tickets and stuff like that. Like, it's a really good way to get your brain wrapped around the sort of like free-to-play long haul, and it's a very easy introduction into that. So I definitely recommend you get going on the Darkmoon Faire. All right, so what I wanted to talk about this week, and I'm going to take another stab at, is sort of understanding our place in the larger World of Warcraft ecosystem and taking some responsibility for that. And I want to get at that by way of a conversation that we had in the Discord that I think is, well, it's eternally brought up, so I guess it is kind of eternally relevant. Every week or so, somebody will pop up in the Discord and ask, hey, how do I get into a regular battleground with my XP disabled? And this is an exploit. It can be done, but it is a violation of the end user license agreement. You do have to do some shady things to be able to queue into a leveler battleground with your experience disabled. And every time somebody asks this, I usually respond with something along the lines of, that's extremely scummy, it's an exploit, don't do it. And more often than not, that kind of ends the conversation. But every now and again, somebody will chime in with like, well, how is that any different than what you're doing? And I guess like the thought process is, ooh, got him. But I have 3 responses to this, and 2 of them are pretty short. One, Um, I'm at 20s are at the bottom of the bracket, right? So by the time a leveler is like 25 or 26, most of their gear should be on par with what we have. If they've gone and enchanted their heirlooms or something, they reasonably, at least on paper, not terribly far behind where a twink is, right? They're still probably a little undergeared, but it's not this wild difference between the two. Because we are at the bottom of the bracket. And so as levelers get higher level than us, the gap between us tends to close, and sometimes fairly rapidly. A talented leveler with enchanted heirlooms catch you out sometimes. So there is that. The other half of it is anytime we queue up and play Battlegrounds, we can reasonably expect that we won't be the only twinks in the Battleground. The people on the other team who will be sort of like the stars of their team are going to be other twinks, right? So it's not like I'm queuing into a Battleground to be a raid boss amongst 19 other levelers. It's generally, when I queue into a Battleground, it's me and probably 10 other twinks and maybe 10 other levelers or something. Give or take, a few twinks here and there. It's not always even, but I know when I queue up that I'm going to be running into other twinks. When you're exploiting into a Battleground, you can reasonably expect that you and your buddies who are going to be exploiting into that Battleground are going to be the only people exploiting into that Battleground. And you will also be at the top of the bracket in gear that far surpasses what anybody else in that bracket could reasonably acquire, right? So not only is the gap between you and the people you're going to be one-shotting exponentially more than it is between, say, a level 20 twink and a level 26 or 27 leveler, you also know that you're not going to face any competition, right? Like, it's not going to be exploiters on the other team facing you. It's just you being a raid boss amongst a bunch of guys in like Exile's Reach greens who have 400 health. Congratulations. So there is this sort of like applicable gap in power that is substantially different between the two. But generally when people say that, what they want to point out is that exploiting isn't any worse than what you're doing, which is false. Exploiting sucks. Don't do it. If you want to twink with the rest of us the way twinking exists these days. But that isn't to say that that free-to-play twinking is sort of this like moral high ground, right? Like, I don't want to give that impression, because all twinking is on a scumbag spectrum. Like, it is. All twinking that involves PvP against other levelers and stuff, it's on this spectrum of scumbag, right? And granted, I would argue that like twinking at 20 is a little towards the small scumbag, and exploiting in is towards the big scumbag. But I am ready to recognize and will readily admit that it's still kind of scummy, right? And I think that that's what I mean when I say we need to talk about our place in the World of Warcraft ecosystem. Is we need to recognize that at least to some degree, some small degree, we are indeed the baddies. Some people relish in that. Oh, I love being hated, whatever. But we need to recognize and accept that, and sort of behave accordingly, right? The fact that free-to-plays and even more surprising, vets are allowed into leveler battlegrounds is just sort of a factor of the way the starter account experience is designed, because they want you to experience PvP, right? They want to allow you to do that. And there's not really a way to prevent twinks from using that as a way to get casual battlegrounds, right? Like, you're going to come in and you're going to say, all right, once you hit X item level, you can no longer queue on your free-to-play account. Well, Twinks will just go right up to that item level, right? Or like once your account hits X days old, you can't queue for Battlegrounds. Well, Twinks will just speed level and speed gear and then play for as long as they can and then just start over, right? So there's not really a reasonable way to separate real starter account players from people who are using starter accounts like I do to sort of maximize the character progression, play a little PvP, all that kind of stuff. But what Blizzard could do is put free-to-play and vet accounts in their own brackets. They could eliminate Bestin and Slots, the experience eliminator NPCs. They could cause vets to start banking XP like they probably should. They could do a lot of things to make to raise the barrier of entry to 20 Twinking such that people outside of like the most dedicated few just won't bother, and then make it extremely perilous to have a 20 Twink because it could level if you try to update it, and then also segregate them into their own battlegrounds, which would keep them out of battlegrounds with levelers. But there is enough of a free-to-play population for people to still get games without wildly unreasonably long queue times. It would probably go from like 5 minutes to somewhere around 15. But they could do that if they wanted to. And so I think that it's imperative that we as Twinks treat it as though we are guests in Blizzard's house, right? Like, we are sort of invited into leveler battlegrounds, if you want to think about it that way. Like, we could very easily be excised from them. And so we need to behave accordingly. Recognize that we are sort of the scumbags and minimize that scumbaggery as much as possible. People lack self-awareness, right? And sort of, I mentioned this was from a conversation in the Discord that we had. We don't want to accept that, like, other people are playing this game, and it's very hard for people to sort of wrap their heads around that, and so, like, I had said in this conversation something along the lines of, like, you aren't, like, entitled to grief other players. And the response was, it's not about griefing, it's about playing a character that I've had for years, and this is the only way I can play it. And that lack of self-awareness, that what you are doing is griefing other players, right? And to you, it's not about griefing other players because there's that sense of entitlement that everybody has where they're like, but it's my tune and I want to play it. And if this is how I get to play it, then by God, this is how I'm going to play it. And that entitlement, like, completely clouds the ability of people to see that, like, what they are doing is griefing other players, right? And you're not really entitled to do that. That's a very shitty way to think about the game experience, right? Like, the only way that you're having fun in this game is by making sure other players aren't having fun. Like, or you're so caught up in you getting to do exactly what it is you want to do without ever sort of experiencing any sort of pushback or any sort of challenge to that, that you completely eliminate the possibility or completely unaware of the effect that you are having on the people around you. And it creates this sort of, like, extremely negative environment, especially, like, in gaming, which is already kind of a fraught negative environment, that really sort of, like, leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And, like, that's how you end up turning a game against you. Like, I think ultimately, to kind of wrap this up, like, gaming at large and World of Warcraft in particular have the potential to be very negative and very unpleasant places to be. And we should be aware of the fact that as twinks, we do contribute to that in a fairly small way writ large. Like overall, we aren't like a huge part of anybody's gaming experience, but in the minutia for that particular day, for those particular people, we completely ruined their gaming experience. I think that we have to own that. We have to be aware of that, and we have to do everything we can to sort of minimize that. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's just jumping in and trying out PvP for the first time and they just get steamrolled by a twink, like, we need to recognize on the other side of that computer that person probably didn't enjoy that experience much. And so we shouldn't subject them to that. I don't want to say if it can be avoided, but, minimize it at least. And maybe start queuing war games with your buddies to get your PvP fix more often than you queue random battlegrounds. Like, maybe take it easy, let off the gas. You don't have to farm honor kills every minute of every waking day. Recognize we are the baddies. Try to be the least baddie person that you can. I think that's the human thing to do and the proper and good thing to do. I'm going to stop rambling about it. I think I've gone on way too long, and I'll let you guys get about your day. But thanks for hanging out, and I will talk to you all next time.